Well, welcome as well. Hi, the ones that are live and the ones that are watching the recording later. That I'll be talking about sleep today. And usually generally there's two types of people. There's either the ones that just don't want to go to sleep because they feel like they have so much they want to get done in the evening when kids are at bed or first thing in the morning. But if they go to bed, they can actually sleep. And then there are the other types that know how important sleep is, but they try and go to bed early enough and then they toss and turn and just can't get good sleep. So today I'll be talking a little bit about first of all, why is sleep so important for the ones that don't really realize how important it is yet. And then I will be talking more about why, if you can't sleep, why that might be happening, a little bit of the underlying biology so that you understand better, and then some sleep supporting strategies. So that'll be the layout for today. I will try and teach you a little bit of the underlying biology so that you understand why you're doing certain things or why I'm recommending certain things. And then hopefully you learn to make educated choices rather than something that someone just tells you and then you try it for a while, but you forget why it is so important and you're falling off that wagon. So I'll be teaching you a little bit of the underlying biology so that you can then become the CEO of your own health journey. Sleep, why might you want to prioritize it? For those of you that are revenge bedtime procrastinators, I'll be just diving a little bit into why sleep might be, you might want to put that onto your to-do list to live the best life possible. Okay, so the main health benefits of sleep, and those are just a few very generic ones, and you probably know about these, but obviously when we're sleeping, our body can repair and regenerate, and it helps our cells prevent aging. It helps get rid of mutated cells. So that prevents and helps prevent cancers. It helps to get rid of any damaged and sick cells, preventing any ill health effects like cardiovascular disease, strokes, and heart attacks. Then also it helps with lymphatic system. That's something in the brain. You might have heard of the lymphatic system. We often have, if we are bloated, we have the fluid stuck in the body, but we have a similar thing in our brain called lymphatic system, and it just drains out all the toxins that we accumulate all day long through metabolism, just through eating and living, but also through our environment. And that mostly works when we are in deep sleep. So it helps flush out any accumulated plaque, things that if they stay there for long term can contribute to Alzheimer's and brain degeneration. So also quite important. It also helps, and that's another thing that's become quite trendy. You might have heard of GLP-1. It's You've maybe heard more about it in the terms of Ozempic or Wegovy. It's quite big over in the US, but also over here in the UK where I'm based. Not sure about Australia, but it basically helps people lose weight because GLP-1 helps to signal the brain that it is full, and it makes you satiated. It also slows down how your body's digesting food so you stay full for longer, and it helps to control your blood sugar. So it's really important for people that have issues with their hunger, but sleep actually helps us produce that naturally. And I'll get a little bit more into the sleep and our weight and eating pattern, how that's correlated in a moment. Sleep also helps to lower inflammation, and inflammation has been linked to lots of ill health trajectories like anxiety, like irritable bowel syndrome, like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancers. So there's lots of things that people nowadays, research shows that inflammation has a role in it, and sleep helps to get rid of that. It also helps to reset our immune system and make better choices and perform better. And I'll talk about that a bit more now. So I'll talk about the short-term implications of lack of sleep. So if you have one night of bad sleep, and then the medium term, what happens if that happens over time for months on end, and then what happens if it continues for many, many years and decades. So the short-term implications of lack of sleep. So you might just think, okay, it's fine, just this one night, which is fine once in a while. Obviously, our body isn't made out of sugar. We can have certain moments of lack of sleep. But if even just one night of lack of sleep helps or messes with our productivity and focus the next day, and also with our memory. So if we're studying something during the day and then we don't have a good sleep, then actually our body and our brain can't put that memory into the right parts of the brain and consolidate it as well. We also just aren't as focused. We can't recall words as well. We might have brain fog. Also, it messes with our immune system. So just one night of lack of sleep makes the immune system more prone to inflammation the next day and makes it less able to deal with any invaders and infections that are being thrown at us. Obviously, if that then happens, not just one night, but longer term, it makes it even more of a problem. Now, what I quite find very interesting is that just one night of lack of sleep messes with our food choices the next day. So some people say they eat something and they just look at it and it goes onto their hips. And actually, if we've had a bad night's sleep, then the next day our body responds differently to the same food than if we had a good night's sleep and we ate that food. And it is more prone to bring it to signal to the brain, sends signals to store that around our waistline and create some belly fat, to store some of that fat. Often I see that in my skinny fat patients. It also makes it harder for us to stick to healthy food choices because we're more likely to make reactive eating choices than proactive if we're sleep deprived. If we have our prefrontal cortex that tells us proactive strategies, how to deal with life, how to look into the future, how to eat the salad or greens or exercise. And if we are sleep deprived, we are going more into the survival mode, which is the backside of the brain, and we're more likely to react and have worse coping mechanisms with food. Sorry, let me just, someone is noisy in the background. I'm just gonna can you see them? Can you, okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Okay, so also it's food related, but also how we act with our environment, how we deal with stressors, whether that is work or family. If we didn't have a good night's sleep, then our body goes into that survival part of the brain, and then we're much more reactive with people, reaction to stressful events, but also making worse food choices, binge eating. We're just not as resilient to staying away from bad choices. It also messes with our sleep rhythm, their circadian rhythm. So if we had a lack of sleep one night, then it makes it much harder to get back into a good rhythm going forward. And just one night, we can usually get back on track. But if that continues, then that starts to accumulate, and then it becomes much harder for us to actually get tired at the right time of the night as well. A thing that I see a lot with my A-type personality patients, over here in London, it's quite a common thing. I'm sure over in Melbourne and Australia, similar thing. I see often that people skimp on sleep to get a workout in because they think they just, kids are sleeping, world is quiet, they might as well get up at 4:30 a.m. or whatever crazy time after having only gone to bed at midnight and get a workout in. Now, research actually shows that if we are doing that, if we've had bad quality or not enough sleep, and we're then skimping on that sleep to get the workout, the benefits of the workout that we're trying to achieve, like helping our muscles build, helping our blood sugar be more balanced, get rid of inflammation, brain health, that is all mitigated. So you might be better off getting that sleep and then trying to get that workout in at some other time. Okay, more medium-term implications of lack of sleep. And when I mean lack of sleep, that's lack of quantity, but also quality. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So if that continues, what I've just mentioned, then our body starts to become more insulin resistant, meaning that when we eat the same food, like I said before, just one night of sleep, we eat the same food that if we had good sleep, then our body responds differently to it, makes our blood sugar more spiky and giving us that roller coaster of getting hangry, low blood sugar dips, high blood sugar spikes. But it also redistributes that weight to the waistline. And that the longer we have lack of sleep, the more severe that gets. And then long term, and I'll talk about that in a second again, long term, that insulin resistance, when our body doesn't respond to food properly anymore, can make us more prone to Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease and those kinds of things. Short-term lack of sleep leads to inflammation. Medium term makes it even worse. Messes with our immune system more, makes us more prone to autoimmunity. See a lot in the female community that there's more and more autoimmune issues, and lack of sleep. It's just one of the pieces of the puzzle. It's just never one thing, but it is one of it that oftentimes just we don't get enough sleep. I talked about the metabolism and the weight. Obviously, one night of bad sleep, eating the wrong foods, if that continues over and over, it starts to accumulate. It also messes with our stress, our cortisol rhythm throughout the day. I'll be talking about that in a little more detail later. But also, it messes with our hormones, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about that. I know you have someone else coming on that is talking about diet for hormones, so I won't be going into too much detail, but in particular, women that are going through, let's say, 40s, late 30s, 40s, early 50s, oftentimes we get to that stage where our hormones are a little bit more volatile and fragile. And especially oftentimes we start to, before we get to menopause, our estrogen often starts to increase, making things grow inside us more, things like endometriosis and cysts and fibroids, painful periods, painful breasts before the cycle, but also drops progesterone, which can contribute to infertility and mood swings and being more irritable and making these things grow more. And if that continues, then we have this whole perimenopause chaos where we have hot flashes and our hormones just aren't really working for us anymore, but messing with us. And then once we hit menopause, our hormones just drop off entirely. Now, what research shows is that if we have lack of sleep and that continues on, then it actually makes our progesterone even lower. It increases our estrogen even more, and it messes with all of these symptoms that I just mentioned. It makes them a lot worse. So just from that perspective, getting enough sleep might be a really important piece of that puzzle to try and ease your way through perimenopause and towards menopause. For men in particular, testosterone is mostly made during sleep. So oftentimes men, as they get older, their testosterone drops, their libido, they are less energetic. Low testosterone is often a part of the issue. So maybe if that's your case for your partner, then maybe look at their sleep as well. For women, testosterone is a little bit less important related to sleep, but also in certain parts. And as women, we also need testosterone. It helps us build muscle density and be toned, have energy, be productive, motivated, and growth hormone you might have heard of. It helps us just kind of prevent inner aging, keeps us younger from the inside, keeps all of our cells healthier, less wrinkles. So overall, you can see this is quite important for us in the short term, in the next months, years, decade. And then long term, I won't go into detail here because I've already mentioned those long-term implications of sleep. If that then continues over a long time and we constantly have inflammation, we constantly have this insulin resistance where the body doesn't know how to deal with sugars and food that well anymore, then that has been linked to all of these long-term health effects that we kind of think are normal in our society, but that we really don't have to run into. And in particular for sleep, it's also Alzheimer's. Before I mentioned that lymphatic system then drains out any toxins while we are in deep sleep, and also that this amyloid plaque that has been linked to Alzheimer's. We all produce small amounts of that, but it needs to be drained away during sleep. And if that doesn't happen efficiently enough or sufficiently, then it might start accumulating and contribute to problems in the brain long term.